I think it's important to look at Quake through its individual mission packs. Each is distinct in story and themes, though not straying from the otherworldly, cosmic, mythological, and unimaginable dimensions. Shub-Niggurath, or the Quake, for example, the main antagonist to the vanilla Quake game, is the source of the nightmare which seeks to envelop every realm of human experience. The other mission packs, Scourge of Armagon and Disillusion of Eternity, follow in delivering new enemies, weapons, and bosses. Armagon sets up the entirety of Quake 2's main story, mankind's interplanetary war with the Strogg. Disillusion of Eternity takes a different stride altogether, approaching a more abstract confluence with myth, magic, the elements for a more spiritual world with materialistic solutions, like rockets to the face to fend off encroaching evil. Quake is an incredibly fun, fast shooter, but it tells a story with its environment through castles, coffins, prisons, churches, towers, an amalgam of gothic and religious iconography, coupled with sci-fi weapons, horrific monsters, wraiths, and demons. But other small consistencies can be missed if you're not paying attention. I think there's one enigmatic through line in the world of Quake. In the first mission pack, defeating Shub-Niggurath requires the ranger to teleport inside of the entity, so from the inside, obliterating the evil. Subsequent missions likewise follow the nightmare logic, seeing the hero delve deeper and deeper into the mad taint of evil to defeat its source and break its confluence in the real world. Granted, the same ideas are in Quake's predecessor, Doom. In essence, while posing the armies of hell against the player across different planets, the mythological zones that are part of Quake become a commentary on the degree to which evil and corruption infiltrate our beliefs. Quake 2 takes a completely different stance, becoming primarily a campaign military shooter. We see how the Strogg have been collectively mass-produced to serve the conquering militaristic ideology of the Master. There seems to be a cosmic mix of another game that id Software created before Doom, Wolfenstein. In Quake 2, an alien fascist dictatorship is trying to impose itself on all life, while humans have none to do with it. The ultimate stakes are waged between absolute freedom and absolute dictatorship. Invariably, the Strogg, as an embodiment of this ultimate evil, makes it very satisfying to sink our bullets into. This one-sided dichotomy, very straightforward, good versus evil, no questions asked, is what makes all of the id Software games so satisfying to play, and Quake 2 has to be the crowning achievement of this established team of talented developers. By the final mission pack, Ground Zero, in defeating the Black Widow, there is a euphoric feeling after leaving so many enemies blown to bits, to have a sense of great victory that can be made against the collective of the Strogg. Quake 1 and 2 are games that pit the player against this ultimate evil, whether that's the nightmare of Quake 1 or the collective Stroggification in Quake 2. Personally, at the time of Quake's release, I was enraptured with Ocarina of Time and other games on the N64. That time was also my foray into PC games like Command & Conquer. While I knew about Doom and Quake, I was less interested in shooters. Additionally, there was a lot of paranoia about the release of violent video games at the time, which my parents were very wary of. This affected my early development around video games, and by the time I did purchase my first mature video game, Resident Evil 1, I did so with reservation and anxiety that was the result of surrounding culture of paranoia about violent video games. Encountering Gnostic, cultic, or sectanic symbols in games isn't uncommon in the 1990s, or today. As a young adult, I felt a lot of apprehension when this conversation was brought up, and felt how important it was to critically observe the kind of content I was consuming. But what was cultivated out of fear at that time is now far better tempered by skepticism today. Out of my playthroughs of Quake 1 and 2, I feel there are 3 positive takeaways that I want to point out. The first is with Quake 1, in the third mission pack, Disillusion of Eternity. I identified with the motif of each episode being based around an ethnic, mythical concept or essence of spiritual magic, and elements of fire, water, air, and earth. How often do we conceive these concepts through history and still today to detrimental beliefs? In Dissolution of Eternity, all these myths are taken to the extreme, and we're tasked to defeating each corrupted mythos. I began to consider how I think about the elements of myths that I encounter in my life. For me, it would be Christian, agnostic, pagan, ritualistic, cosmic, Roman, Greek, Hawaiian, Buddhist, Shinto, all sorts of beliefs that I accept and feel appreciation for as these stories exist in me and how I see them in the world. The second positive reflection I have was from Quake 2 in the second mission pack, The Reckoning. Here, the Strogg interact with the local inhabitants of their world, the Gek. The Gek are tribalistic, amphibious creatures that attack by spitting and slashing. Though they have a reverence for the technology of the Strogg and that of the Marine. Numerous examples show their worship of technology and their chanting encircling particular technological artifacts. Their existence as a native to the land adapting to a foreign power is interesting. How often does power interact inside of cultures, and how do we adapt to others that are now prevalent fixtures in our surrounding culture? Changing our ideas and concepts, how do we consider cultures intermingling? The final interesting takeaway I have is from the mission pack Ground Zero in Quake 2. The final boss is by far the best in the series, the Black Widow. The Black Widow summons many small spiders, hence the name, and looks like a giant mechanized spider. Before entering the boss arena, the hero stepchild is confronted with a lot of fascist iconography in the form of banners lining walls. The spider is a symbol often associated with control over many different entities. By defeating the Black Widow, we have once again attacked the source of some strict mind control elite programming in the Strogg Collective. I was taken aback by how appropriate I felt this boss fit the entire narrative of Quake 2, and was brought to consider what web of constructed connections I have created within my own beliefs that I need to resist. I often feel caught in some powerful web of negative emotions in association with some triggers. All in all, experiencing Quake as I have here in the mid-2020s, I've found a great love for the game, but the crowning mission packs, I think, are both Quake 1's Dimension of the Past, Dimension of the Machine, and Quake 2, The Call of the Machine. I finished Quake 1, Dimension of the Past, casually over a couple of afternoons. Dimension of the Machine pulled me in, and I completed mostly in one sitting. Although the mission packs are not long, they are dense in their design. The same fluid run-and-gun action is better than ever in these mission packs. Level layouts and enemy placements, as well as items, give the ranger pinpoints on where to operate. Quake 1's Dimension of the Past shifts deep beneath the vanilla game's surface. Recall that Shub-Niggurath was the outer god responsible for the new chaos with both the physical and mental planes of humankind. It sought to shape all things to its twisted evil. We may presume that should a ranger conquer this dimension, then the events of Quake would altogether be solved. This brings into skepticism the exact relevance of the first few games. It begs the question, is Dimension of the Past the true ending to Quake 1? Or is something else at the heart of this mission that's far more unfortunate for the fate of the Rangers? What exactly is accomplished at the end of the game, where a single credit scroll simply states, "We salute you"? Before I jumped into the next mission pack, the Dimension of the Machine, I sat and pondered what I just played. Looking at the generic text, I felt unsure of what was accomplished in the Quake universe. What became clear to me is that the Dimension of the Past is not a mission pack where we confront events that have led up to the first game. Instead, it's the Slipgate itself that appears as the series' true final boss. It's through the Slipgate that the past dimension is even accessible. So instead of entering into a past that we knew from vanilla Quake, the Slipgate in Dimension of the Past can link to all possible pasts. What does that mean for the Ranger? This, I believe, is the most unfortunate reality to the horror of Quake's universe. An infinite number of paths are possible for Shub Niggurath to infiltrate. The fight is endless. Every nook and cranny of possible paths must be sought out and searched for wherever evil may be taken over. Wherever evil may be. The Slipgate itself, then, as we enter it to finish the final mission, remains the tired enemy that never sleeps, constantly impregnated with possibilities of Quake's newfound horrors. But to call each progressive Slipgate another connection with the past isn't entirely correct. The Rangers have successfully destroyed Slipgates that also teleport within locations on the same planet or spacecraft as in Quake 2 on the Nintendo 64. It is this particular Slipgate in the Dimension of the Past that the Rangers have solely isolated the ability to contend with a multitude of paths where Quake might seek to rise. To reiterate, the mission is an endless one for the Rangers, hence the tired generic text scroll at the end of the campaign. What at all about the past should be changed? How has my mind been wrapped around this question in my own life? The core premise is very human. We always imagine ways that the past has shaped us into what we are today. The past is useful. It provides us with memories for which we can base our identity through our experiences. We learn from the past. As a species, we look to the past for meaning in the study of history. We value context and landscapes, which today we look back on and see how they have changed. We can view the past as a phenomenon, as biology works in a completely different way from how our consciousness works. Consciousness, on the contrary, might be seen as the biological work of the past. Let's take a more universal question. How would I have lived my life if I knew now what I know of the past? The questions can become engrossing and toxic. I feel in myself the same war that I saw on screen as I played the Ranger. Here is once more another aspect of the past I have conquered. Now the next one. Now the next one. And where or when does it end? What sort of congratulations is in order at all for these accomplishments? I can identify with the helpless world in the Dimension of the Past because I have felt it in my own world. At any rate, on these ponderings, I went on to the next installment, Quake 1's Dimension of the Machine. It's tempting to continue comparing Dimension of the Machine with Quake 1, as it was known at the time of its release in 1997. tempting to suggest that it may hold the answer to the riddles of Dimension of the Past. But the machine is so solitary in its presentation, design, and environment, I believe it stands on its own. The Dimension of the Machine is hands down the greatest addition to one of the best first-person shooter games of all time. Yet, as of writing this, its completion score sits at less than 4% of players that have bought the Quake 1 bundle. That's very unfortunate given the amount of detail and care presented throughout the entire mission pack. While levels are shorter, there is utter perfection in the density of map layouts, pacing between exploration and action, and when you are in pure survival mode. The maps are selectable from the start, each having their own difficulty, puzzles, and themes. Depending on which maps you select first may give one player a completely different experience from another. I started in the world of the Magicians, which immediately stunned me even after seeing the opening hub area. Every map triggered a sense of wonder, from the stonemasons' halls, reminiscent of outdated military research facilities, to jumping from asteroid to asteroid in the opening of the world of the astrologers. Levels may dive deep underground or spiral high up on dilapidated rooftops. Collecting each arcane rune drives the player one step closer to understanding the dimension of the machine, or so it seems. Without giving away the last boss, the player is invariably left with no conclusion toward this mysterious dimension. The ranger leaves the machine without accomplishing anything except an escape. The last boss can be put down as underwhelming, to say the least. However, there is one mechanic within the fight that is symbolic for how video games can be used. For years in the 2010s, the phrase Skinner box was used to describe a trend in gaming toward season passes, loot boxes, or simply packs. The phrase was used in a scummy sense to direct the attention of gamers to the habit of essentially gambling in games. The mechanic in the final boss area includes a respawning ammo pack for cells. It sat with an overhead dispenser, which would crush the player if they sat under it, but you could hide from the boss and simply wait for the ammo to respawn. The game gives you two alternatives for this boss fight. You could fight your way through enemies for ammo, or just sit and collect the best ammo in the game by waiting 10 seconds every time for it to spawn under the dispenser. If there is any meta-narrative in the dimension of the machine, it appears this single mechanic, found nowhere else in the Quake series. This might be the closest thematic object to compare that machine with: our brains. So it's come to the last entry, Quake 2, The Call of the Machine, and a definitive conclusion, if eons after the first Quake games. This wraps up the entire series in a nice bow tie, but also is an impeccably crafted action masterpiece. The mission pack plays much like the Dimension of the Machine, having a hub world where the player returns to after the selection of each mission. All of the missions ramp up to unique, incredible endings, with entirely new bosses, settings, and trial areas. Graphically, everything flows smoothly, other than a few loading areas where the game will stall, just like the original Quake 2 packs. I couldn't ask for a better follow-up to the ending of Quake 1's 2023 pack, and I'm so satisfied that they delivered here. Corpse Run really was an awesome premise, as was Laser Eyes. But other missions saw different fates of Marines. Some, although uploading the needed data CDs to understand the machine, fell to terrible fates. Even the commanding ranger that sends other rangers who we play on their missions sees their fate stuck in the void of space-time. In final praise, it's incredible that Call of the Machine could incorporate every iteration of Quake, from Quake 1 to 2, and all their diverse missions and goals, and find a way to bring it together seamlessly. For me, this is the true ending of Quake.